Breaking news about the affidavit that led to the FBI search of former President Donald Trump's Florida Mar-a-Lago estate. The Department of Justice has finally released a redacted version of that 38-page affidavit, revealing that the FBI found 25 documents marked top secret among 15 boxes of files Trump gave back to the National Archives earlier this year. For more on what we discovered today, let's bring in ABC News investigative reporter Katherine Faulders, also former chief minority counsel at the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, Jeff Robbins. So, Katherine, what else did we learn within this affidavit that could impact this investigation into Trump and these classified documents he took from the White House?
So, look, Kara, this is really laying out the timeline that led up to this August raid. We now know what was found in those original 15 boxes that took federal investigators so long to obtain highly classified information. And we didn't quite know what was in these before. So 14 of those boxes, Kira, 14 of the 15 contained classified information, highly classified signals intelligence, potentially compromising human sources, to the point that investigators and this special agent on the FBI revealed that they believed that there was evidence of obstruction, that there was probable cause, that there was still documents there at Mar-a-Lago and in multiple locations. And they revealed that Mar-a-Lago was not secure. It didn't have a secure location at all where these documents could be accessed, and they weren't just in that one location. They had reason to believe that they were in other areas around the premises, Kara.
So Trump is now pushing back, of course, on the affidavit's release. Does he have any point to what he's saying here?
Well, look, he has called for it to be released originally. Now, of course, Trump is saying, and his allies and his spokespeople are pushing back on the redacted version of it. But the reality is that's redacted to protect the witnesses in this investigation and potentially in future investigations or other ongoing investigations. Now, look, if Trump wanted to, and his lawyers, if they wanted to be a party to this lawsuit in court, they could have been, Kira, but they did not join on to this lawsuit. They filed no motion. It was media organizations, including ABC and the Department of Justice. So Trump has said all of this publicly, but again, has made no case for this to be released in court.
And so, Jeff, this isn't just about the mishandling of classified documents. There are other crimes involved here. So what position does this put the former president in legally when you're talking about obstruction and also unlawful taking of presidential records?
Well, there's a 34-page affidavit full of evidence that the federal magistrate has found should not be disclosed because it consists of evidence that will or could jeopardize the investigation. I know that looking at this heavily redacted document, it feels a little bit like affidavitius interruptus because it's all blackened out. But that's exactly what is supposed to happen when the identity of witnesses or the information that they provided or the identity of future witnesses may be compromised. So there's a 34-page document. We know it has a ton of evidence that a federal judge has found could jeopardize the investigation if it were disclosed. I wouldn't be particularly happy from a legal point of view if I'm the former president right now, but I understand that his allies will be out there saying, well, look, if you hold this blackened out area up to the light, it looks as though Hunter Biden provided this information to the FBI. But from a legal point of view, he's exactly in the same position that he was in yesterday.
So the DOJ argued, Jeff, that a full release of the affidavit could reveal grand jury information, the direction of a highly sensitive national security investigation, all while putting potential witnesses at risk. Did it? And what could this mean now for the direction of this investigation?
Well, it is hard, exactly as the Department of Justice said, once it was finished redacting the affidavit, the probable cause affidavit, the affidavit that formed the basis for the conclusion that the former president had committed 3 crimes at least. Once they were finished doing that, there wouldn't be very much left. It would be law enforcement Swiss cheese. And they were right. There isn't really anything in this affidavit that looks as though it could place anybody in jeopardy. That's by design. The problem is, of course, that the predictable people will say, well, look how suspicious it is that all this information was blackened out. Those familiar with this will tell you that this is absolutely normal, that, of course, steps will be taken to prevent the disclosure of evidence like this.
So finally, Katherine, the affidavit is out, sort of. The investigation continues. What's next?
Oh, well, look, I think you will obviously see the political response to this, but it will continue behind the scenes. We know, and we've reported, that there is a grand jury impaneled on this. We know that multiple witnesses, as we've reported, former White House officials, those close to Trump who work for him now, have been sitting for interviews with the FBI. All of that is going to continue. As DOJ has said, it's still in the early stages, but what we do know is that they do have a lot of evidence, and that's apparent from all of the redactions.
So, sharing info with foreign adversaries, that was something, Jeff, that our Brad Garrett pointed out, one of the biggest concerns for him, looking at what was involved with these documents. Your thoughts on why Trump wanted these documents in the first place, and then when you see things like sharing information with foreign adversaries as a concern here on behalf of the FBI and, of course, the government, where do you see this headed now?
Well, I think you'd have to be an ostrich to not be concerned that this particular individual, apparently violating the Espionage Act and other statutes on a wholesale basis. You'd have to be concerned that there was some reason that he did it. And the memoir writing excuse offered by one of his allies doesn't really hold water. And so that leaves you with a concern that he would seek to benefit himself in some fashion. Who would be interested in that information? Well, yeah, foreign adversaries. It's shocking to even ruminate about the possibility, but in the case of an individual like this, given what has occurred and the magnitude of the taking of and withholding of information he wasn't entitled to, you'd have to be foolish not to rate that as a concern, and evidently the Department of Justice does.
So, Jeff, politics aside, what do you make of Trump's legal case here?
Well, he's in trouble. On this front as on others. And one of the things about this affidavit, of course, is it does take the pins off his attempt to get another federal judge to appoint a special master. You notice at the end of the affidavit, the Department of Justice, for example, goes through the steps that it is going to take to filter out privileged information and to ensure that the law enforcement side of the equation does not see any even arguably privileged information. That undercuts in a big way, it seems to me, much of the argument that was made by the former president for a special master, and argues, frankly, in favor of keeping it exactly where it is in front of this federal magistrate.
And Katherine, there was a lot of emphasis on protecting witnesses and the redactions and not getting names out there. We all know how Trump can be when he finds out somebody within his circle has ratted on him. He's been very vocal about that. We have seen how he has treated people that he has felt have gone against him. So was that the purpose of this? When we talk about protecting witnesses and all these redactions, clearly there were a lot, and more than likely many within Trump's inner circle, and he wants to know who they are.
Yeah, and look, separate from what DOJ has said in terms of protecting the integrity of the investigation, they don't want to lay out a roadmap and reveal the names of witnesses and any potential abilities to obstruct here. I think it's important, Kira, what you pointed out is that we know from our reporting and behind the scenes that Trump does want to know who's been talking. He wants to know if there is one person in particular who detailed where the documents are. And I think it's also worth pointing out in an unrelated matter, but in the congressional investigation into January 6th, how the committee referred a witness tampering matter over to the Department of Justice because they had evidence that they said Trump was trying to call potential witnesses. All of this is characteristic of Trump and what he typically does in times like these. So sure, it is a worry and something they very clearly don't want to expose for that reason, but also just to compromise any investigative techniques. And they could have some witnesses who are going to talk in other investigations as well that know more than just about the documents, for example, potentially things related to January 6th. We just don't know.
All right, Katherine, Jeff, thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.